Sometimes I try and you might feel stuck inside. The mind is good at lying. It makes you feel you want to cry. But better days are coming, they're just around the way. Whenever you feel lonely, oh, remember you are here today. Just don't stop. Don't stop, keep dancing. Oh, baby, I am where you are. Don't stop, keep dancing. 'Cause right here, right now, is all that we've got. It's all that we've got. Yeah. Tomorrow's always, always greener in our eyes. The only thing that's certain is the sun when it arrives. 'Cause better days are coming, they're just around the way. Whenever you feel lonely, oh, remember you are here today. Don't stop, keep dancing. Oh, baby, I am where you are. Don't stop, keep dancing, 'cause right here, right now, is all that we've got. It's all that we've got. Let's go to their place. Close your eyes and fly away. Today's a brighter day. Can you feel the sun rays? Soon we'll be together, and we'll be dancing. Oh, yeah. Don't stop, keep dancing. Baby, I am where you are. Don't stop, keep dancing. 'Cause right here, right now, is all that we've got. It's all that we've got. You're all that I've got. You're all that I've got.
Attention, Mountaineer family. The commencement ceremony is about to begin. At this time, please locate the nearest emergency exit. Please silence your cell phones, tablets, and other electronic devices, and turn your attention to the outstanding students who are the focus of this day. This is their moment to shine, so please give them and their many accomplishments your full attention. Now, let's get ready to welcome our graduates.
For 154 years, West Virginia University has been graduating talented leaders who make our world a better place. Today, we celebrate the May 2024 graduates who continue that legacy. Please welcome the candidates for graduation from the John Chambers College of Business and Economics. And now, please welcome members of the Platform Party, led by University Marshal and Department Chair of Management Information Systems, Graham Peace. Richard Riley, Chair of the Department of Accounting. Feng Yao, Chair of the Department of Economics. Abhishek Srivastava, Chair of the Department of Management. Javier Reyes, Chancellor of the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Anne Marie Hibbert, Interim Chair of the Department of Finance. Annie Shui, Chair of the Department of Marketing. Brad Humphreys, Associate Dean of Academic Affairs and Research. Michael Walsh, Associate Dean of Assessment and Assurance of Learning and Chair of the Department of General Business. Rebel Smith, Associate Dean for Undergraduate and Graduate Programs. Tanya Willis Miller, Chair, West Virginia University Board of Governors. Frankie Tack, Faculty Senate Chair. Frank DeMarco, Program Coordinator of the Hardy Family Hospitality and Tourism Management Program. Mark Gavin, Senior Associate Provost. Marianne Reed, Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs. Karen Evans, Honorary Degree Recipient. Maggie Hardy, Presidential Honorary Degree Recipient. Joshua Hall, Milan Pushkar Dean of the John Chambers College of Business and Economics. Carrying the University Mace, University Grand Marshal Chad Proudfoot. And Dr. E. Gordon Gee, President of West Virginia University. Please rise for our national anthem, followed by the alma mater.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched
You may be seated. We now welcome to the podium Provost Marianne Reed.
Good afternoon. On behalf of West Virginia University's faculty, staff, students, Board of Governors, and administration, I am pleased to welcome you to our May 2024 commencement ceremony. Today marks a milestone achievement in your lives. Graduating from college or graduate school is a major accomplishment. Over the past several years, you have faced and overcome a myriad of challenges: final exams, all-nighters, high stress, heartaches, and heartbreak. Your experiences have made you resilient and adaptive, and they have strengthened your resolve. You've shown grit in the face of adversity, which bodes well for your future. Please know that your WVU degree has value, and so do you. We've enjoyed our time together, and we look forward to seeing where life's journey takes you next. But as excited as you are, and maybe a little scared to leave your college or graduate school years behind you, be sure to take this moment to stop, take a breath, and appreciate how far you've already come. Today is your day, a day to celebrate and take stock of your achievements, a day to rest on your laurels for just a little bit before you begin the next leg of life's journey. You have earned your success through your hard work, dedication to your studies, and yes, that mountaineer grit. So please take today to savor this moment and know that we couldn't be prouder of you and your success.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my distinct honor to introduce the President of West Virginia University, Dr. E. Gordon Gee, for the presentation of the honorary degree to Karen Evans.
Thank you very much.
Faculty Senate Chair Frankie Tack will assist President Gee with this presentation.
Sorry for stepping on your line, my friend. Apologize for that. Ladies and gentlemen, what a wonderful day. It's great to see all of the families and friends here. This is about as close as I'll ever get to a basketball court, I can tell you that right now. So it's great to see everyone and our students. How wonderful. You know, giving an honorary degree is something that the university takes very seriously, because these are given to people who have made such a difference in the world and such a difference in the lives of our university. And so we are very honored to have 2 honorary degrees today. First of all, would Karen Evans please come forward? Karen? Karen S. Evans is the Managing Director for the Cyber Readiness Institute, which empowers small and medium-sized organizations with free resources to improve cybersecurity. As a 3-time presidential appointee and Senate-confirmed executive, Evans has over 30 years of experience in cybersecurity, national security, technology innovation, service delivery, and supply chain risk management. She served as the first Assistant Secretary for Cybersecurity, Energy, Security, and Emergency Response at the United States Department of Energy, and has supported many agencies, including the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, the Department of Agriculture, and the Executive Office of the President at the Office of Management and Budget. Karen was also established as the U.S. Cyber Challenge, a private sector nonprofit that partners with universities to train hundreds of cyber experts, and currently sits on the board of directors for the National Cybersecurity Center and advisory boards. She earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in chemistry and a Master of Business Administration degree from West Virginia University. So Karen S. Evans, on this day, March 11, 2024, in recognition of your distinguished career and by the virtue of the authority vested in me by the West Virginia University Board of Governors, I hereby confer upon you the Doctor of Business honoris causa with all the rights, honors, and privileges appertaining thereto. Let's give a round of applause to our newest doctor. Congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me to welcome Karen Evans to the podium.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed faculty, distinguished guests, graduates, and my family, I am honored and grateful to stand before you today as a recipient of this esteemed honorary doctorate degree from the John Chambers College of Business and Economics. To be recognized by an institution as prestigious as this one fills me with pride and humility. As a mountaineer, I have learned the values of resilience, perseverance, hard work, and community. These values, instilled in me while attending here at this university, have guided me through every endeavor and have shaped me into the person I am today. They remind me that no challenge is insurmountable and that together, as a community, we can achieve greatness. But standing here today, I am acutely aware that my journey would have been impossible without the unwavering support and love of my family. Although my parents have gone from this earth, I know they are here with me today. I am joined by my husband and my sisters, and this honor is as much as theirs as it is mine, and I share it with them with immense gratitude. I am deeply indebted to the faculty and the staff of the John Chambers College of Business and Economics, whose dedication and excellence and commitment to nurturing the future leaders have set the foundation for success. My education has been instrumental in shaping my journey, and as I reflect on this moment, I am reminded of the responsibility that comes along with this honor, to embody the values of a mountaineer in everything I do, and to lead with integrity, and to make an impact on the world around me. In conclusion, I extend my deepest gratitude to everyone who has been part of this incredible journey. This honorary doctorate is not just a recognition of my achievements, but a celebration of the collective effort of all those who have supported and believed in me. I am profoundly humbled, and I pledge to honor this privilege to continue to uphold the values of being a mountaineer. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Go Mountaineers!
Ladies and gentlemen, we now welcome back to the podium the president of West Virginia University, Dr. E. Gordon Gee, for the presentation of the Presidential Honorary Degree to Maggie Hardy. Faculty Senate Chair Frankie Tack will assist President Gee with this presentation.
Will Maggie Hardy please come forward? Maggie Hardy is a highly successful entrepreneur and owner of two widely recognized businesses, 84 Lumber, the nation's largest privately held supplier of building materials, manufactured components, and industry-leading services for residents and commercial buildings, and Nemacolin, a luxury resort nestled in the Laurel Highlands of southwestern Pennsylvania. 84 Lumber, with $6.3 billion in sales in 2023, operates 320 facilities across the United States, comprising stores, component manufacturing plants, custom door shops, and engineered wood product centers. 84 Lumber is recognized as a leader in the industry and consistently receives high marks for the professionalism and knowledge of its more than 7,000 associates. 84 Lumber is also a certified National Women's Business Enterprise, was named by Forbes as one of America's largest private companies, and was listed on Newsweek's Most Trustworthy Companies in America in the 2024 list. Nemacolin Resort has been creating magical moments in Pennsylvania's Laurel Highlands since 1987. The four-season playground stretches across more than 2,200 acres in southwestern Pennsylvania, showcasing a range of award-winning accommodations, including show-stopping dining and lounges, two Pete Dye-designed championship golf courses, the award-winning Woodland Spa and Salon, a holistic healing center, Orvis endorsed fly fishing, and 35,000 square feet of meeting and event space. Recently, the Hardy family in Nemacolin made a $7 million investment in our university, which will open doors for future generations of mountaineers majoring in hospitality and tourism management. The gift created the Hardy Family Hospitality and Tourism Program Endowment, which will fund student scholarships and residency internship stipends to give students a robust pipeline of hands-on experiences that prepare them for jobs. The gift will also give students the opportunity to innovate and solve industry-specific problems in the Nemacolin Hospitality and Tourism Lab in Reynolds Hall, and will create 2 professorships. So, Maggie Hardy, on this day, May 11, 2024, in recognition of your distinguished career and by the virtue of the authority vested in me by the West Virginia University Board of Governors, I hereby confer upon you the Presidential Honorary Doctorate with all the rights, honors, and privileges appertaining thereto. Give her a round of applause, would you please? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Maggie Hardy to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. President. Boy, is he a trip. I just met him last night and I had a ball. He comes up to me and says, you know, I really like you. I never met you. You know, that might have something to do with the $7 million. They told me to keep to my script today, but I'm going to find it somewhat difficult. I look out amongst all of you that have worked so very hard. A lot of you in this room today are first-time graduates. Your families are so proud of you. You should be so proud of yourself. You stand out among the rest. You are ready to conquer a lot more things in this world. This is a sensational day in your life, one that you will never forget, and it's my sincere pleasure to be recognized among such a remarkable group of individuals. I am so appreciative to have been selected to receive this honorary degree. The best thing about this moment right now, there are so many possibilities at your fingertips. 2 of them, you can come work for me, 84 Nemacolin, and I guarantee you to be a success. When I started running 84 Lumber in Nemacolin at the age of 23 years old, I truthfully did not know what I was doing. But I knew I was going to get up every day and do something. I made it a point never take myself so seriously. But do what I do, I took that very seriously. However, I've learned quickly that the great success doesn't come without great disappointment. At 84, the market crash in 2008 hit us like a ton of bricks. At that time, we were annualizing at doing $10 billion. I woke up every morning scared to death. But I knew deep down, I knew with my determination and the hard work of my associates, we were going to get through this. We came out of those dark times better than we ever were before, and I could not be more proud of the teams I have behind me today. What I wish that resonates, that my father, Joe Hardy, always said to me, the world is truly your oyster, and don't let anyone else tell you different. I hope that you plant your roots within an organization, 84 or Nemacolin, where you can grow, succeed, and most importantly, this is the most important thing to me, is to be your authentic self. You will learn communication and the big word empathy with whoever you surround yourself with is the key to success. Don't be scared to go for something that has never been done before. I was 23 in an industry where there wasn't any women. What the hell was I doing? Kicking ass, calling names. I was out on job sites, broke my back. I didn't know any better. No one told me you're doing the wrong thing. I just kept making money for the company. The revenue kept going on and up. Wasn't a bad deal. But I surely didn't know what the hell I was doing. I'm glad I didn't. I can't just feel it. I can just feel it in the air today. The grit. There's a grit you gotta have to succeed, and a desire. And I know all of you are gonna get out in the world and do something even larger than you ever imagined. What the hell am I doing up here right now? It is without a doubt that your future will be full of success to celebrate for many years to come. And again, no words can express sincerely how grateful I am to be receiving such a prestigious degree from this university that I attended for 1 year and dropped out. My house was right across from the towers, and I had a big hot tub. It was fabulous. I know I'm not supposed to be putting this in my speech. I'm just my authentic self. If Lady Gaga's mom was here, I would just tell her, you know, I am born this way. I hope that you wake up every day and just do something, please. And that all your wildest dreams will come true. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
We will now present the students who fulfill the requirements for graduation from the John Chambers College of Business and Economics of West Virginia University. I invite President Gee and Milan Pushkar Dean Josh Hall to join me in congratulating the graduates. Presenting the candidates for the PhD in Business Administration Management. Alexander Saruk. Candidates for the PhD in Marketing. Li Guo Lu. Presenting the candidates for the PhD in Economics. Sean Michael Gilliard. Justin Craig Heflin. Brian Ku-Wing Wai. Eli Kokersberger. Dunishka Paranevatana. Alexander Paul Shukis. And now presenting the degree candidates for the Master of Accountancy. Bailey Hoffman Cahill. Ian Davis Carr. Carson Matthew D'Amato. Alejandra Judith Ditchin. Jacob Wayne Ellis. Jack Fuentes. Maggie Jean Grandi. Jeremy Michael Hardman. Andrew Drake Hoybach. Madison Mitchell. Savannah Diane Ross. Sarah Elaine Smith. Matthew Sashitis. Wesley Thomas Starcher. Joseph Brett Talaferro. Claire Marie Ollum. Riley Camille Williams. Now presenting the degree candidates for the Master of Business Administration. Joshua Dean Atkins. Jenna Lynn Allman. Rachel Nicole Boniti. Matt Borkowski. Thomas Bosley. Tyler Brostek. Ryan Marshall Burks. Cambria Melissa Joy Caldwell. Alexander Antonio Castro. Marco Ferdinand Sorbonne. Riley Elizabeth Clark. Naya K. Cook. Grant Phillips Fisher. Caitlin Gessner. Colson Morgan Glover. Sasha Gorchunuk. Tanner Gorseth. Timothy Graham. Kaylee Abigail Green. Sarah Elizabeth Heller. Nicholas Joseph Johnston. Brooke Elizabeth Jones. Samuel Henry Kessler. Christopher Michael King Jr. Nadia Lenore Korth. Michael Joseph Costco. Franklin Theodore Lee. Andrew Wayne Legg. Emma Rose Mattingly. Aaron Tyler Matlock. Zachary McKinley Meredith. John Francis Monahan. Wyatt Jacob Murphy. Abigail Lee Nickerson. Jamie Augustine Olette. James Derek Para. Garrett Presley Perkins. Hayden Lavoya Powell. Jonathan L. Riggins. Sophie Roshalski. Jacob Hodge Shia. Muemba Samoa. Parker Surface. Lucas Christopos Thackeray. Trent Tipton. Ethan Van Meter. Madison Varney. Cornelia Wenzel. Glenn Everett Whited. Hillary Beth Williamson. Michael David Wilson. Philip Wojtovich. And now the degree candidates for the Healthcare Master of Business Administration. Sharmeen Amin. Erin Nicole Kelly. Christopher Michael Lindsay. Crystal Rose Rocosi. Brandon Austin Cavendish. Now presenting the degree candidates for the Master of Science in Business Cybersecurity Management. Adriana Sharon O'Neill. Chase Riley Pilkington. Thaddeus Scott Wright. Oziyama Uda. Now presenting the degree candidates for the Master of Science in Business Data Analytics. Nicholas Germanicki. Mary Margaret Major. Marion Elaine Tiemeyer. Garrett Christopher Watcher. Now presenting the degree candidates for the Master of Science in Finance. Eric Curtis. Rahal Guh. Matthew Jacob Kinzer. Wensong Lang. Rachel Elizabeth Daniel. Kelly Ann Farley. Shania Fribley. Catherine Marie Gehring. Jacqueline Deanne Hernandez. Jeffrey A. Kolflesh. Jillian Lee Lehman. Kerrigan McMillan. Rebecca Ann McVicker. Ross Bulgarian. Savannah Marie Wallace. And now the degree candidates for the Master of Human Resource Leadership. Colton Oliver. Summer Ray Props. Catherine Melissa Ziegler. Presenting the degree candidates for the Master of Human Resource Management, Ryan Richard Robinson. The degree candidates for the Bachelor of Arts and Economics, Connor Michael Johnson. Gavin Sager Miller. Presenting the candidates for the Bachelor of Science and Economics, Saif Salem Al-Nomani. Nicholas William Bymel. Clara Elizabeth Bennett. Logan Joseph Bowman. Margaret Patricia Britt. Samuel Colin Crowder. Emily Elizabeth Dawson. Madison Olivia Enders. Ulawafumoke Futusen. Amelia Jean Flaherty. Brandon Vito Gick. Colton Scott Marsh. Caitlin Elise Nutter. Paige Plunkett. Ethan Gage Quisenberry. John Francis Riordan. Andrew Rios. Madeline Elizabeth Surrett. Clayton Wyatt Stike. Gavin Tharney. James Victor Toy. Madison Schuyler Troxel. William Charles Turman. And now the candidates for accounting. Thomas Justin Akers. Cameron Barnhouse. John Charles Bober IV. Preston Brock. Isabella Ann Kane. Skylar Elizabeth Chancellor. Daniel Shahoven. Matthew James Cockerham. Rose Elizabeth Corcoran. John Robert Correll. Kaylee Louise Cowden. Andre Thomas Denault. Andrew Michael Doherty. Amelia Caroline Eckerd. Sean Eric Frame. Eric Hasenauer. Samuel Augustine Hauk. Dylan Robert Hudachek. William Thomas Coons. Jacob Clifton Scott Leneve. Morgan James Mann. Kevin Ryan McCauley. William Thomas McHugh. Maggie Milbourne. Robert Douglas Minger. Allison Moore. Amanda Jean Muth. Haley Alice Ostrander. Christopher Patrick Palkin. Allison Paige Piercy. Aiden Sean Priest. Nathaniel Mays Ripito. Jacob Scipio. Sarah Lee Seitz. Dustin Simmons. Kennedy Irene Simpson. Mitchell Daniel Stewart. Julius Faggard. Austin Jacob Tolley. Tucker Scott Workman. Cindy Zhu. And now the candidates for entrepreneurship and innovation. Dylan Albert Bassett. Kalijah Burton. Caden Custer. Lily Grimes. Kyle Scott Hacker. Alex Michael Johnson. Sydney Mae Kimmy. Derek Thomas Kinross. Gray Largy. Sierra Morgan McGlumphy. Kylie Joe McKenrick. Carson Joseph Michael. Abigail Catherine Myers. James Trey Pancake. Tate Michael Roach. Cameron Alexander Cyberlick. Sarah Susan Smandra. Brett William Stevens. William Stone. And now the candidates for finance. Christian Alianti. Christian Ash. Roman Garrick Baird. Housen B. Michael James Bick Jr. Bryce Connor Breeden. Daniel Joseph Bruder. Austin Bufus. John William Bush. Michael Lewis Callan. Z. Chin. Charles Peyton Coe. Jacob Cohen. David James Colangelo. Macy Marie Crawford. Tyler James Deal. Anthony Philip DeMattis. Bailey Jean Dunham. Kara Olivia Edwards. Eric Joseph Estep. Cassidy Ruth Farrow. Connor Flynn. Thomas Foose III. Christian Raymond Fry. Shenrei Fu. Wao Guan Wan. Ryan Mark Gardner. Jacob Alexander Gomalik. Paxton David Gordon. James Michael Gore. Benjamin Carroll Green III. Zien Han. Sean Robert Hennessy. Gabriel Hepler. Michael Hicksonbaugh. Abigail K. Holder. Roshuen Huang. Wyatt James Hudson. Sailor Huey. Harish Kartikeyan. Nicholas Kennerly. Nicolina Krunik. James Michael Lattendorf. Carter Good Lawrence. John Logan Lee. David Lipinski. Yanan Yang. Yao Liu. Potter Lynch. Jackson David Mace. August James Malkovich. Kyle Merritt. Justin Wyatt Marcus. Nicholas Allen Markovic. Adam Gregory Marquardt. Ryan Christopher Maxwell. Ollie Menard. Colin Miller. Nathaniel Carey Malloy. Brendan Christopher Munyon. Matthew Morozek. Nathan Grant Neville. Stephen Newen. Caleb Allen Norris. Brandon Jeffrey Norris. Paige Paquette. Andrew Paris. Jack Carter Penwell. Brennan Andrew Prather. Maxwell Rathke. Ryan Anthony Riccardi. Allison Nicole Robinette. Logan Alexander Rolfe. Kyle Rossi. Emma Nicole Russell. Jake Anthony Salas. Matthew Xavier Sanchez. Jonas Michael Sanders. Cameron Joseph Shilp. Zachary Michael Cease. Grant Selman. David Lee Schaefer III. Ryan Andrew Sigillo. Nathaniel Michael Smith. Abigail Marie Snedeker. William Gray Stakehole. Zachary Michael Stamen. Nicholas Paul Stelling. Olivia Claire Suazo. William Mackenzie Swan. Jacob David Verno. Wu Wang. Cameron Page Weaver. Luke Carson West. Brendan Michael Whiteman. Erin Rose Wiley. Jacob Bradley Wyman. Alicia Louise White. Hamingje Shu. Zingze Zeng. Sia Joe. Jingy Ju. Thomas Zimmerman. And now the degree candidates for general business. Jake Joseph April. Madison Jane Belida. Seth Atlee Baker. Benjamin Clay Anthony Balestra. Jacob Allen Barcombe. Cameron Bildstein. Mackenzie Page Blair. Casey Richard Blau. Jada Hope Brooks. Peyton Reese Buttry. Jessica Byrne. Carson Calabrese. Kaylee Joelle Canterbury. Elijah Stefan Cheeks. Hannah Faye Clarkson. Joshua Landon Koss. Max Hunter Darnell. Emma Dietz. Allison Doyle. Wesley Howard Eskridge. Joseph Conrad Falpole. Luke Flock. Briston William Forker. Kenneth Clinton Fritz III. Gabriella Lee Gatto. Kylie Marie Haynes. Edward Patrick Herney. Eli Jacob Hott. Taylor Hutchison. Jesse Cargus. Richard Allen Lane. Taryn Ann Loy. Robert Elliott Lyles. Luke Martin. Tony Renea McBee. Dylan Tyler McKee. Momoko Nagato. Jacoby Rashad O'Neal. Cassandra Lee Orphanopoulos. Justin Freed Parsons. Davis Porterfield. Paige Elizabeth Remich. Rose Nicole Rosiska. Brandon William Shearer. Samuel Jacob Sheeran. Charles Harrison Sheeler. Colby Sauce. Aiden Nicholas Sporer. Hannah Strauss. Molly Elizabeth Thompson. Jane Elizabeth All. Whitney Faith Wade. Margaret Walker. Jackson Curtis White. Corey Whitener. Logan Hunter Wilt. And now the degree candidates for global supply chain. Nicholas Augusti. Robert Cameron Baltzley. Giovanni Bazzano. Carolyn Lael Berman. James Edward Boyce. Daniel Winston Cardini. Kristen Carly Casanelli. Madison Sean Sesnick. James R. Chick. Owen Schunard. Michael David Colina. Tim Coffey. Aiden Christopher Emmanuel. Talia Marnie Fitter. Caleb Bracken Gano. Abigail Catherine Gall. Anne Marie Giampetro. Jared Goldstrom. Scott Charles Grimm. Caleb Hamerick. Shane Michael Hunter. Savannah K. King. Erica Renee Knopp. Mackenzie Grace McFarland. Ethan Machado. Brendan Joseph McGinnis. Kyle Thomas McLaughlin. Ryan Conley Moffett. Allison Perhax. Andrew James Peters. Connor Phillips. Sawyer Russell Questenberry. Lindsay Raleigh. Santino Giovanni Rao. Javier Reyes. Gwen Rose Russo. Alexander Merrick Satkus. Jacob Dylan Schwartz. Alex Smeagol. Connor Smith. Kayla Smith. Catherine Ann Thompson. Ethan James Van Horn. Curtis Donald Venturini. Kerrigan Nicole Wagner. Scott Thomas Weichert. Hannah Jabuchi Williams. And now the candidates in hospitality and tourism management. Emily Rose Eckenrode. Aaron Michael Fraley. Ruben Guzman. Kimberly Hazen. Dallas Justin Jarrett IV. Chloe Grace Johnson. Catherine Christine Loiza. Sky Martin. Brooke Mikesel. Cameron Cole Mullinex. Amelia Rose Marie Rose. Skylar Ann Schaefer. Troy Austin Wiener. Luke Thomas Woodashek. And now the degree candidates in management. Piper Lindsay Anzalo. Peyton Shea Barb. Camden Joseph Bates. Taylor Marie Bowser. Dominic Capito. Charlie Ann Confer. Nico James Chris. Vincent John DeBald. Paige Ann Dressel. Clement Espinas. Shaylin Elise Hughes. Drew Michael Kellerman. Sean Patrick Kenworthy. Sarah Kowalczyk. Jackson Brady Martin. Cora McGorgy. Michael Ryan Muhebi. Holly Michelle Monroe. Xavier Nawaz. Daniel Lewis Openshaw. Lee Cunningham Paul. Will Phillips. Megan Polenick. Andrew Schatzman. John Paul Schultz, Jr. Rohin Sharma. Tyler Scott Sharp. Evan Lawrence Stravakis. Ryan Thomas Strabikis. Grace Sophia Valenzuela. Haley Elizabeth Vincent. And now the candidates in Management Information Systems. Fatima Mashal Al-Shamali. Angelica Rose Banish. Cameron Dean Bennett. Derek Bolin. Kennedy Page Brewer. Jessica Dawn Callison. Caitlin Elizabeth Chips. Christian Timothy Klaus. Sydney Grace Cowell. Charles David Driver. Garrett Gray Ellis. Dominic Feitner. Jaden Michael Felton. Nolan Samuel Giesler. Sophia Rose Harker. Kennedy Austin Hawkins. Charles Maxwell Heinley. Charles Fletcher Hoover. Jared Allen Eisenhower. Luke William Johnson. Bryce Kunschek. Drake Nathaniel Lemansky. Brian Lynn. Cooper James Martin. Jennifer Brooke Morris. Daniel Moylan. Lorenzo Nunez. Sydney Jordan Parkent. Gage Joseph Pauley. Jacob Pauley. Ryan Kip Peasley. Aiden Pfeiffer. Jefferson David Ferris. Ethan William Price. Malin Reese. Austin Samuel. Jillian Marie Schaefer. Taggart Shea. Wiley Skidmore. William Garrett Slocum. Siddharth Srikumar. Noah Asa Stacy. Zachary Schwartz. Avery Jai Wilcox. Wyatt Wiley. Hannah Grace Wilkinson. Nicholas Wilson. And now the degree candidates in marketing. Bryn Elizabeth Ackerman. Carlo Allegria. Brock Altland. Caitlin Nicole Arrington. Matthew James Berry. Allison Katie Berry. Eric Marshall Borman. Natalie Rose Brenniger. Jacob Henry Brochu. Nicholas Bucci. Madison Olivia Bushman. Danielle Lee Bachman-Can. Ellis Alexander Brown. Riley Shaw Carlin. Stephen Cart. Caleb Chamberlain. Ian Richard Kepkevich. Ryan Sherfain. Paige Madison Signa. Reagan Ashley Cochran. Dylan James Cook. Jacob Ronald Coleman. Maria Grace Costa. Kearney Tatum Coyne. Julia Lynn Crago. Kristen Avery Crenshaw. Amelia Dahm. Luke Everett Ames Davies. Ava Marie DeCesar. Jameson Taylor DeVol. Cameron Loren de Blasio. Laurent Norbert Dion the second. Macy Elizabeth Dochinez. Caroline Wellington Drummond. Claire Elise Dursa. Chelsea Elise Edney. Lane Emmerich. Jake Ferris. Ryan Ferris. Valerie Renee Fogg. Preston Charles Fox. Benjamin Ryan Giuliani. Casey Deanne Goddard. Shayla Janae Gray. Luke McGuire Grimm. Haley Nicole Grendo. Emma Mackenzie Han. Sarah Elizabeth Harding. Sierra Paige Hartline. Willow Sky Herman. Jacob Daniel Hersick. Katie Heverling. Caroline Grace Olivia Hopkins. Alyssa Kaylin Hutchinson. Tyler Christopher Hunt. Georgia Grace Kane. Taya Brooke Kelly. Olivia Lucy Kelly. Jenna Kim. Abigail Renee King. Brooke Amanda Kistler. Alexandra Paige Comer. Alicia Jane Cozen. Alexandra Catherine Lazari. Nathan John Lee. Gunnar Francis Lisi. Jillian Grace Leo. Brooke Lichtenstein. Jennifer Longo. Hope Elizabeth Marling. Mackenzie Lane Mail. Dylan James McDilda. Madison Sage McLaughlin. Carissa Catherine McNary. Nicolette Ann McNaughton. Connor Patrick Meyer. Julia Marie Meredith. Michaela Ray Mills. Marissa Ann Momer. Brooke Cassidy Motzer. Madeline Elizabeth Muckleroy. Madeline Jennifer Muller. Patrick Cale Nanners. Philip O'Neill. Robert F. O'Neill, Jr. Samantha Nicole Orta. Amanda Sky Parsons. Brooke Lene Parsons. Is it? Emma Lee Marie Parsons. Rocco Martino Pastori. Caitlin Nicole Patterson. Jade Leilani Porter. Nicholas Andrew Radazak. Chad Matthew Rieger. Olivia Reiter. Devin Riss. Ariana Maroney Robsock. Elizabeth Ann Romanek. Aiden Nicholas Roy. Deanna Ruiz Velasquez. Ava May Sater. Taylor Ann Seaman. Lucas William Severio. Ashlyn Lizette Skiba. Mara Slane. Aiden James Slifer. Levi Jacob Spratt. Christian James Springsteel. Alexis Haley Stauffer. Jessica Hannah Temple. Carly Cynthia Tomko. Abigail Leslie Trimmer. Connor Edward Urbach. Chase James Valenti. Brooke Renee Wagner. Cameron Avery Walters. Michael Andrew Watkins. Emma Grace Watson. Justin Werbick. Elizabeth Wirtz. Alexander John Westberg. Jonathan Dennis Wildman. Emma Woodard. Matthew Stephen Wright. Braden Francis Yadluski. Taylor Christine Zanke. And now the degree candidates for organizational leadership. Jacob Maxwell Walter. Please welcome Milan Pushkar Dean Josh Hall to the podium.
Good afternoon. I'm Josh Hall. It's my great honor to serve as the Milan Pushkar Dean of the John Chambers College of Business and Economics. Today, we celebrate you, the class of 2024. With the turn of your tassels, a new journey begins. Even if you don't know exactly where that journey will take you, know that you're ready for it because of what you learned during your years at West Virginia University. Each of you were the why behind Reynolds Hall. We built the future of business together. You took the first steps in Reynolds Hall, you brought its possibilities to life, and you made it your own. We often say that our Chambers College students are the future of work, and that's never been more true than today. You are ready for that future thanks to the support of your families who have guided you, cheered you on, and loved you through the ups and downs. And our engaged business alumni, like Maggie Hardy, Karen Evans, who give back by partnering with us to create outcomes for business students like you. And the engine that drives the Chambers College, our faculty and staff, who engaged you in your student experiences and prepared you to make your marks in your chosen areas of business. My hope for you, each of you, is that you never stop learning. As you take on the world, remember the importance of compassion, take care of yourself and each other, be courageous enough to turn impossibilities into possibilities, but humble enough to learn from your mistakes. When you find yourself in disagreement, give others the benefit of the charitable reed. Congratulations, graduates. Know that I am proud of each and every one of you. I can't wait to see you all change the world for the better ways in the way that only Mountaineers can. I invite President Gee back to the stage to offer some words of wisdom.
Ladies and gentlemen, the only thing standing between you and dinner is me, so I'm going to be very fast, as a matter of fact. I'm grateful to be here. What a great day. And it's great to see so many people here and cheering and having a wonderful time. It is a glorious day in the life of our university, and it's a glorious day in your life. This is once in a lifetime issue for all of you, so I continue to appreciate that. And so I'm delighted to be here to celebrate the West Virginia University Chambers College of Business and Economics class of 2024. Today, let me just begin by congratulating our graduates for the tremendous resolve, and let me just say that again, for the tremendous resolve they have shown in achieving this milestone. College is never easy, but many of you started this journey under uniquely challenging circumstances. And for you, graduation itself may feel unique because the high school graduates of 2020 missed out on that culminating experience. And your college years started out not with Fall Fest and fun, but with mask and Zoom and the occasional swab up your nose. So I'm thrilled to give you the celebration that you deserve today. Overcoming obstacles to achieve success is a skill that you have honed, and it will serve you well throughout life. Of all that you have learned here, I hope you remember one above all: commit to your purpose. Commit to your purpose and work to fulfill it. That purpose may change throughout your life, and that is just okay. You have an inner compass that will point you in the right direction. Since ancient times, many cultures believed our deepest emotions and inner drives proceeded from our hearts. And while our anatomical knowledge has evolved, we still have that passion within us. By heeding it and following it, we reach our destination. Or in the words of Confucius, wheresoever you go, go with all of your heart. The people we are honoring here and across this campus with honorary degrees have pursued purposeful lives. Maggie Hardy, owner of 84 Lumber and Nemacolin Resort, has a passion for hospitality and tourism, which led her to invest in this college's program for future industry leaders. Karen Evans, with more than 30 years leadership in cybersecurity, founded a nonprofit that helps universities train the next generation of experts. Other honorary degree recipients across campus included Senator Shelley Moore Capito, whose passion in public services included a focus on improving broadband expansion in West Virginia. Barbara Nisman, who has inspired people by creating music with orchestras around the world, and Cynthia Germanata, whose passion for mental health led her to help found and lead the Born This Way Foundation with her very famous daughter, Lady Gaga. True success comes from embracing who you are and what you believe. As Germanata's famous daughter sang, "Don't hide yourself in regret. Just love yourself and you're set." So graduates, you can fulfill your dreams by aligning your time and energy with your values and motivation. Stick to your path, and the education you received here at West Virginia University will propel you forward. That I can assure you. The family members and friends and teachers who supported you throughout your education will continue to cheer you on. Like the heart that outlines the Mountaineer Parents Club logo, everyone in this room has embraced you. And your well-being has been their constant care. So I would like everyone here to just pause for a second to thank all of those who have made this possible, and happy Mother's Day to those who are here also. Give everyone a round of applause, would you please? So, as a parent and a grandparent, I have 5 grandchildren. I cannot resist offering a few words of wisdom as you leave here today. First of all, take initiative. Take initiative. Remember that you will never succeed if you never try. Like Barbie, and yes, I did see the movie. I want you to know that. You may sometimes wonder, what was I made for? Keep looking for the answer and never let anyone put you in a box. Now, I'm going to say this as clearly as I possibly can. Put down your damn telephone. Put it down and take in the world around you. Stop texting and start talking and reconnect with the human race. Spending time outdoors is good for your physical and mental health, but if you stay local, watch out for the bear at the Arboretum. Do not store up Stanley Cups or video games or Taylor Swift vinyl variants to fill a purpose-shaped world. Build a life you can look back on with these words from Maya Angelou. If you find in your heart to care for somebody else, you will have succeeded. Even if you make a few mistakes and detours, your heart will lead you to the place you belong. So will the degree candidates from the Chambers College please rise? Will everyone please rise? Your field is essential to our society's functioning. To you, we entrust our hopes for innovation and prosperity. Having honed your communication skills and absorbed fundamental business principles, you are ready to go forth with an entrepreneurial spirit and the highest ethical standards. As a West Virginia University graduate, put your Mountaineer values to work solving problems and changing lives. Make service to others not just an obligation, but your passion. Nurture the curiosity that enables you to visualize new ideas, try new solutions, and blaze new paths. Respect others. Let me say that again. Respect others and search for common ground on which to build our shared future. Be accountable to yourselves and others by working hard. Celebrate the successes that education has put within your reach and inspire others to value the world-changing power of scientific discovery and artistic expression. Above all, make every day that you live an opportunity to learn. So, ladies and gentlemen, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the West Virginia University Board of Governors, I hereby confer upon you the degrees for which you have been recommended with all the rights, honors, and privileges appertaining thereto. You may now move your tassels to the left side of your cap as a symbol of your achievement. Congratulations.
Please remain standing. Graduates, university marshals will release you in an orderly manner after the platform party exits the floor following the singing of Country Roads.
Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountain, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the trees, younger than the mountains, growing like a breeze. Country roads take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country roads, all my memories gather round her. Minus lady, stranger to blue water, dark and dusty, painted on the sky, missed a taste of moonshine, teardrops in my eyes. Country roads take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Country roads, I hear her voice in the morning hours. She calls me. The